In this lecture, I'm going to be giving you a guided tour through the project that was created by Django 4. Show you what those different pieces are. I'm even going to talk about a few naming things there. So with that, let's go ahead and open it up. Now we could look at it through the file system, right? Like I can go to my desktop here and take a look at it. But I really recommend looking at this through a code editor so we can start looking at the code. And I mentioned this in the Python refresh, but I really like Atom from atom.io. But feel free to use whatever sort of text editor that you'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up Atom. And with that, I'm going to open up this whole project. So I really recommend selecting the top level directory, and then we can sort of move forward from there. So let's see if Atom can get its opening prompt here. There we go. It looks like it's finally coming through. All right, so I'm going to go to my desktop and oh, now it's trying to open up a lot of things. There it is, word count. So I'm going to select that and hit open. So first things first, when Django creates a new project, right, it asks for the name of that project. And I said word count. So we have word count up here. There's a top level folder called word count. And then inside of there, there's another folder called word count. And then there's this db.sqlite3 manage.py. So the first thing is I want you to rename this top level directory to word count-project. This sort of, for me, helps me signify, okay, that's the most top level folder directory of this whole project. And this is the internal one. So in your text editor, you can do this. Like I right click and do a rename here. And I'll just go ahead and add that dash project. Or you could go ahead and just do this through the file system, right? Select this folder and you could say rename there and do like a dash project, just like that. So I'd like to make a quick note for our Windows users. If you're going to change the directory name, if you're currently running your project like you are here in the command prompt, and you go and try and say, all right, you know what, I'm going to rename the change here. I do my little double click and I'm going to call this dash project. Windows is probably going to give you an error because saying, hey, it's being used right now. What you have to do is you have to do a Control-C, close the server, and I'd even close the command prompt. Then I'd go ahead and make the change, say word count dash project. Okay, make that change, and then go ahead, open up your command prompt again, move into your desktop, / word count project, and then we can run that again with the python manage.py run server. Up to you about how you want to handle that. It looks like now that I've done that, I might have to reopen Atom here. So let's do a new open here. It's been a little bit fickle. Maybe I need to open up a new window first. Here I am singing Atom's praises, and it's, being all funky with us. But there we go. I'm going to open up word count dash project. All right, so now we can distinguish between the very top level and then what's inside. So the first one that I want to talk about is this manage.py, right? This is the one that we used before to do run server. And basically this manage.py helps us do some top level admin things. So if we go back to the terminal here, remember again to quit out of the server from running, you just do a Control-C here, or you could close the whole terminal window, but this will, why not just use the same one we have here? And if I do my Python 3 space manage.py and I do a help, you can actually see all the different things that this manage.py can do. So the big one that we're going to be using is the run server. Where's that? Oh, it's down here. Run server. Other ones, when we're working with files, we're going to do collect static. This is a big one, the start app. That's whenever you want to make a new application. I'm going to talk about those in the next website, but there's all sorts of little things that you can do with this manage.py. So just know that this is sort of kind of top level things for your website. You use this manage.py. So you should never be editing this file. If you are, it's for some specific reason, and at that point you should be an expert Django user before you go around messing with this. The next one is this db.sqlite3. So this file is a database that is generated for us whenever we make a new project. In fact, you'll notice that this was not here before we ran the server, but after we created the server, this came about. This is not going to be a human readable file. Instead, it's supposed to store data in a really efficient way. And we're going to be talking about all different types of databases in the second project. So we're not going to touch that here, but just know that that's what this is. This was an auto-generated database for us. So let's move now into the word count directory, where this is sort of the real money maker here. This is the super important one. And I'll just start top to bottom. So the first one, this pi cache here, this is just on your computer. It's going to be generated every time that you're running the server, doing new things. And so these are just sort of internal files. You don't need to worry about these at all. The next one is this init. This is whenever you are initially creating a new project. This is a pretty advanced Django thing, so we're not going to be touching this at all throughout the entire course, so I really wouldn't worry about this file. But the settings.py, we are going to be touching this a lot. So there's a lot of things to unpack here, and let me go ahead and give ourselves some more space to see. The first one is talking about, setting up where the base directory of this project is. So right now it's set up in a good way that it will sort of auto move to wherever it is inside of your computer, but you could also make this like an absolute URL if you wanted to. There's the secret key here, which you should not show to anybody, but because this is just a little project that's going to live on my individual computer, I'm not pushing this up to the internet. I'm not really worried that you can see it. Plus, you can always change the secret key if you want to. If somehow someone figured this out, you can always change it again. But just know for your own projects, when you push them live to the internet, you should really make sure that this key is kept protected. Debug, this is basically saying, are you working in a development environment on your computer? And the reason that this is important is, for example, let me go back to the website here. And if I go to our website's homepage /hello or something like that. I stopped running the server. So let me go ahead and do run server one more time. Remember, that's Python 3 manage.py run server. If I tried to go to that URL, we are going to get a page like this that says, page not found. This is where we looked for these URLs, blah, 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 all the stuff. The point is that when your debug is set equal to true, there's all these details about your website that are sort of presented to you. So when you're working, this is really helpful because you want to figure out, where did the things go wrong? Like, I need to figure out what's happening here. But when your website is live, you don't want people seeing, the internals of your code and everything that you're doing here. So you want to go ahead and make sure that that is secret. So getting back to the settings.py file, if you set debug equal to false, that essentially puts you in a production mode. And if someone puts in like the wrong URL, whatever, it can present a nice 404 page and not show all the secret details of your code. Moving on, allowed hosts. We're not going to deal with this till the second website. Installed apps. You're going to learn about apps in site number 2. Middleware, this is some pretty advanced stuff, but basically just think of this as auto-generated code by Django, and you're going to basically want everything that's here. You can get customized with it, but I would just leave this as is. The next one is your root URL comp. That's basically saying where your initial URL file is, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. The next one is templates. So basically, turning this Python code into HTML at the end of the day, right? Because when someone requests a website, it's going to give back HTML. In fact, if we go back to this home page that we have, let's go back here. What we got back from our Django server was just a bunch of HTML. So you could right-click inspect element and sort of see the details there if you want to. You can also do view or show page source. It's different depending on which browser, but this is essentially what was sent back was a bunch of HTML here. And so it's basically these templates inside of Django that help you do that. And so this is saying, where should I be looking for templates? What kind of options do you want with that? That's what that's all about. Next, this WSGI application. This is for when you're hosting your project live, how people can connect with it. And we're going to talk about this after we create our second website and we're posting our code live to the internet. You'll learn all about that. You'll notice there's also this WSGI file here, and that's connected with this here. Next, databases. So remember I talked about this db.sqlite3. This is where that came from when we ran for the first time. It actually generated this file for us. So if we wanted to, for example, make like a new name here, we could say like eggs.sqlite3. If I save this and I'm going to close the server and run it one more time, Look at that. We now have eggs.sqlite3. So I don't recommend this at all. In fact, let me go ahead and close this down. We'll go back to settings and we'll turn that back to DB, just to show you that's where essentially that came from. Eggs is not a great database name, but I just want you to understand the settings file. Next, password validators. We're not going to cover this until we get to the third website, but this is basically saying, hey, whenever someone makes a new user account, what sort of things do you want to require of their passwords? And then here, this is sort of making your website unique. Like, what language code do you want it to be in by default? This is US English, time zones, all that good stuff. And then down here, static URL. We're not going to dive into that until site 3. So maybe I went into too many details here, but I just don't want you to be afraid of the settings.py file. This is basically some top level stuff for your project that you can set here. And I'm going to be walking you through when we need to change things or add things to this file. Next, as we move down, is the urls.py. So this is a really important file. You'll notice the huge top of this is just a whole bunch of commented code. So if we wanted to, we could just delete that out, right? And this would sort of simplify what we have here. But initially when you're going out, this might be a good thing to check out. But I'm going to delete it now just for a moment to sort of keep things simple. Anytime someone visits your website that's connected to your Django project, it's going to come into this file, and ultimately this list of URL patterns decides where the user's request should go next, and ultimately what HTML to send back to the user. So right now we only have this path for like admin, and honestly we're not even going to talk about this until the second website, but we are going to be adding our own paths here in just a minute, but I'm just trying to give you a nice introduction. So know the URLs, this is basically the starting point for our Django website. Finally, that WSGI file, this is for hosting your website so that other people can access it, and we're going to be talking about that when we upload our website to a server. So there you have it, sort of a breakdown of what a Django project looks like. I think we've kind of given enough there. It's time to dive into some nitty-gritty and actually build something here. So we're going to go ahead and do that in the next lecture.